Hello everyone, thank you for your presence online. My name is Victor Paredes. I am a PhD student at IRCAM in Paris, and I will present to you a brief report on the work we led with Jules Françoise and Frédéric Béville-Lacroix called Entangling Practice with Artistic and Educational Aims, Interviews on Technology-Based Movement Sound Interactions. Movement sound interactive systems designate any kind of digital processing of movement sensors data that controls a sound synthesis. As such, those systems are an important area of NIME research in DMI development, musical gesture study, or experiments with gesture in dance, to name a few. There are very few reports on the evolution of systems or the practice around them. Therefore, our goal in this study is to document how professionals from different backgrounds, such as performers, dancers, composers, or educators, question their practice in regard to those systems. We contacted 6 artists that used or designed movement sound interactive systems in their practice. 2 dancers, Berta Bermudez and Yves Cando, Fabrice Guédy, a music educator, 2 musicians, Marie Kimura and Philippe Spicher, and a composer, Michel Agnès Magalhaes. We interviewed them during 90 minutes to 2 hours, either in French or English. Interviews were semi-directed following the same structure, including questions about learning processes, transmission, and appropriation. We decided to do a reflexive thematic analysis on the transcripts, as described by Brown and Clark. TA is a qualitative data analysis method that enables researchers to extract patterns of meaning called themes across a dataset. It consists, after familiarization with the data, of a first phase of coding and a second phase of theme development. Reflexive TA differs from other TA techniques in that it acknowledges the subjectivity that lies in qualitative data interpretation. The codes do not come from a codebook, but are generated by the researcher when analyzing the data. The theme should not be defined prior to the coding and must emerge as pattern from those codes, from the interpretative work of the researchers. We extracted 3 main themes from this analysis. During the interviews, we asked the artists to position their work and approaches with respect to the use of technologies. We did not provide any definition of what technology could refer to. In their discourses, they either use the term technology in a very general sense, or they refer to very specific tools, such as the Kinect or smartphones, to name a few. Importantly, they don't consider technology as a theme or goal, but rather as something embedded in a sociocultural context. Philippe Spicher talked about instruments with today's technology. Far from a solutionist approach, technology is seen as a perturbation that gets the artist out of their comfort zone. Most artists also considered interactive technologies as a support for transmission. Fabrice Guédy uses movement technologies to help teach music theory to young students. He reports that it is very clear that the decompartmentalization that it produces in students is something that works. Similarly, for Berta Bermudez, technology is not a tool for the process of creation to be enhanced, but for me, it has been a tool really for transmission. Reflecting on a decade of experience, Marie Kimura reported, "I have practiced well enough using just one thing, but in order to refine your movement and try to incorporate that into a tool that is useful for music expression, you really need to spend time with it." Interviews expressed a desire to escape a triggering paradigm found limited and often associated with a gadget. Yet, as complexity increases, you can get overwhelmed very quickly because you become a human synthesizer, and so all you do is sound, explains Philippe Spicher. Fabrice Guédy goes against a normative approach of technology. We are not going to use ready-made technology. What is interesting is to think about several disciplines at the same time, which will then be mixed together. Several interviewees reflected on the history of technology in art, drawing comparisons between early experiments with technologies and some contemporary technologies that have become normative. Most interviewees make efforts to foster creativity and personality in the transmission of the technologies, rather than a form of imitation and replication. We do our best to reproduce the best performance, but as soon as we think like that, everything is screwed up because we will put ourselves in a mechanical mode. And as soon as we are there, focus on the result, we are no longer in the present, told Michel Agnès Magalhães. Even though it was not introduced by the researchers, the notion of obsolescence consistently emerged through discussions with all practitioners. However, Berta Bermudez reported, the installation, if we put it back, it doesn't work anymore. It's really a problem because the tool itself is obsolete, but not the creation process. What did we do during the creation? That's not obsolete, because we are still here. So we have to talk about that, we have to leave a trace, because I think it's important, I think it's quite unique. Eventually, what matters is the persistence of methods and knowledge over time rather than the technology itself. Learning was one of the key themes introduced during the interviews. Importantly, interviewees emphasized that learning is highly intertwined with the development of a personal practice. So I think in a learning system you always start with the thing you know first and try to apply them to a new environment. I tried to look for those gestures that I knew, I started from there. Naturally, all interviewees emphasized the need for experimentation and exploration. When experimenting with a new interactive system, people tend to rely on their existing skills. Often, this exploration is initially driven by the desire to understand the interaction at play. Once the initial phase of discovery leads to an understanding of the interaction, performers often challenge the system, exploring its limit to understand where it breaks. One interesting thing is that we always try to do two things. One, we understand the system, and then we try to break the system and see when it doesn't work. Almost all the dancers did the same. Most interviewees view their interactions with technology beyond the pure control of an instrument, as a reflective and conversational process. Technology is considered beyond a tool or an instrument, as a partner who helps me to think about what I'm doing, says Berta Bermudez. External constraints drive performers out of a common pattern of habits. Yet, freedom is necessary so that interaction lets personality and idiosyncrasies emerge among different interpreters. This analysis of the interviews has raised several questions that I will now address. Interestingly, even when explicitly questioned, the notion of expressivity, a notion of importance for the NIME community, was regarded as somehow ill-defined or not considered as an important topic to discuss frontally. Therefore, it would seem that the use of gestures is not meant to enhance or facilitate expressivity. In all interviews, the view of technology is ambivalent, navigating between normativity and emancipation. Moreover, obsolescence is unavoidable, and yet the general concepts that are developed are intended to resist technological evolution. This brings important questions about transmission and pedagogy, and we believe that it opens a large and interesting debate, since this necessitates to establish what in our practices is truly independent from technological artifacts. It appears that pedagogy inherited from standard music practices does not encompass the variety of musical practices that exist today. Particularly, in improvisation practices, as shown by Hayes, the notion of graduating from novices to expert with a predefined educational path does not apply. Interviews highlighted that systems can be designed to facilitate learning through metaphors, images, play, and interactive feedback, supporting movement execution. This can be linked to the use of different types of affordances, as suggested by Altavilla and Pearce. In conclusion, the interviews we conducted were fruitful to bring a different line to NIME research about movements and interactive systems. As discussed by other researchers in this field, it is intrinsically difficult, or maybe fundamentally impossible, to translate global methods borrowed from traditional music practices in terms of composition and pedagogy to practices based on interactive technology. Nevertheless, the insights given by the artists still reveals how important it is to privilege strong concepts over detailed implementation, the importance of openness and modularity of the system, and how constraints and perturbations can be fruitful in artistic contexts.